Welcome everybody, welcome into the room. I'll just wait a moment before we formally start for our audience to all join us. Welcome everybody, just letting everyone into the virtual room before we formally start. Ina mai, ina reo, ina reo rangitira mai, tēnā koutou. Kia koutou te tangata whenua, Ngāti whātua Ōrākei, e mihi nui, kia koutou ai tēnei wā. Kia tātou te hanga ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to our Australian colleagues, and I acknowledge the original custodians of Australia and pay our respects to the elders, past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, the culture and hopes of Indigenous Australia. Kia ora everyone, I'm Sharon Lloyd, General Manager of the Circle in New Zealand, and it is my pleasure on behalf of the Circle and ANZ to warmly welcome everyone attending. A special welcome to Antonia Watson, CEO of ANZ. The Circle is honoured to be hosting you today, Antonia, and highlight the release of the Watch Women Win report. Watch Women Win is a piece of research Antonia has commissioned to start highlighting the achievements of young women in sports, business, the arts and other walks of life. The report explores what the issues and potential solutions are for girls and young women participating in sports and physical exercise. Today, Antonia is going to share the findings of the report with us. We are also delighted to have Emma Twigg, New Zealand Olympic rower, with us today. Welcome, Emma. Of course, Emma is an Olympic gold medalist, having won the women's single scull event at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Emma will join Antonia for a kōrero during the event today. We would love to hear from you, our audience today, and there is the opportunity to ask your questions of Antonia and Emma. Please place your questions in the Q&A field and we'll come to them during the discussion. A reminder that we are on the record and recording today's event. We welcome members of the media in the audience with us and we'll also share the recording on our YouTube channel following the event. Finally, I'm pleased to welcome Raelene Castle, recently appointed CE of Sport New Zealand, who will in a moment formally commence proceedings. Raelene, it's wonderful to have you back in New Zealand, and I was pleased to find the perfect quote to introduce you as follows. Raelene holds the position of New Zealand's most powerful woman in sport and long-time poster woman for smashing gender barriers. A strong champion for women and girls in sport and business, we are honoured to have you back with the Circle today, Raelene, and I'll now hand over to you to get us started. And you're just on mute.
Isn't that trying to do the right thing, be on mute, and then you end up not taking it off. So ngā mihi nui, Sharon, thank you very much for those kind words. Tēnā koutou katoa, no Raelene Castle aho, no ko Ngāpui aho, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for having me today, and it is a shame that we're not in person. It's certainly one of those things that's really challenging as we think about what we're facing and have faced over the last 4 months. For me, I'm in Auckland, sitting at my dining room table, and you know that's not an easy place to lead from, but the reality is that we've all pushed through, and there's now starting to be some light at the end of the tunnel. Can I just acknowledge Antonia and Emma? It's nice to be here with you today. To Antonia for the work that you've done and the research that you've done in ANZ. I've been fortunate to have a long association with ANZ right back when I was part of launching the ANZ Championship, which was the first semi-professional team competition for women in Australasia, and ANZ came on board really early, and National Bank and into that transition of ANZ, and they said we're behind this and we're really committed, and to have a brand that straddled the Tasman, but to also have you know, teams playing across that environment and have someone and a brand that's so significant step in behind really gave the event the impetus that it needed and the profile that it needed. And for you to have continued those sponsorships, whether it's in netball and cricket and into Paralympics and Olympics, can I just say on behalf of, you know, as a woman that's always advocating strongly for women's sport, the fact that you have consistently stepped up and put your money where your mouth is greatly appreciated. We have a really exciting 24 months coming up. For the first time in any country in the world, we will host 3 Women's World Cups and an international women's event in New Zealand. The Women's Cricket World Cup is first, the Women's Rugby World Cup is later in 2022, and then we go into the FIFA Women's World Cup in 2023. Those events are pioneering opportunities for not only our athletes to perform on the world stage, but also for the world and to see the spotlight in New Zealand, where we really do, whilst the research suggests that we've got a wee way to go, we continue to do things that many other countries in the world don't do when it comes to engaging with our females, be it in sport, arts, or the business environment. And we do have many leaders who have succeeded in those spaces. That said, the research is very clear that we have some gaps and we need to work harder on it. What those World Cups will do is they will actually profile those women performing at their very greatest. And it's not just the athletes, it's the coaches, it's the administrator, it's the event organisers. Not only do we have those 3 Women's World Cups, but all 3 of those events are led by women. And if you can imagine the challenges that they have faced over the last COVID times to actually be able to get to a space where they can actually put those events on as a testament to their ability to think outside the box and really work hard to deliver. Resilience is something that I think really underpins a lot of the conversations that we need to have. And you know, certainly my own experience over some of the roles that I've held over the last 15 years have really built my level of resilience, and there's nothing like you know, a good public back page story to test whether your resilience is strong enough. And what I'd say to that is, you know, what as corny as it sounds, what doesn't kill you builds you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And actually, for me, the learnings that I've taken out of those really challenging situations has what allowed me to now step into this role at Sport NZ and improve the physical activity of particularly our tamariki and rangatahi. We've got another person on this presentation today, Emma Twigg, who I don't know that there is a New Zealand athlete that is personifies the word resilience more. 4 Olympics, 3 performances which were amazing but not where she wanted to be, and to come back and win that gold medal is just truly special. And unfortunately, I haven't actually, because of the silly COVID thing, haven't had a chance to meet Emma in person yet, but Emma, I'm looking forward to that chance to sit down and have a chat and learn from you about the resilience that you certainly went through. One of the things that I'm most proud of in relation to Sport NZ is that we implemented a board diversity target. So over the last 24 months, we've been working with all our sporting organisations to ensure that they have 40% female identifying board representation if they receive more than $50,000 of Sport New Zealand funding. What we have seen is that out of those organisations, 64 organisations, we will have well north of 60 compliant by the 31st of December. And that has seen 65 new female directors appointed into those board roles. That growth and that focus is something that I'm really proud of, not just because we've now got more senior females sitting around board tables, but because I know that diversity and that diversity of those conversations will mean that we get better outcomes for our young women as they look for opportunities in these environments, but also for the performance of the businesses, because that's what the research says. So once again, thank you for having me. It's great. I'm looking forward to taking the next 45 minutes, a chance to sit back and see what I can learn from Antonia and Emma. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
E ngā mana e ngā waka e ngā reo e rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Antonia Watson, toku ingoa, ko taku mahi ki ANZ Bank, ko te kai whakahaere. Good morning or afternoon, wherever you are, to everyone here today, and particularly to women from all backgrounds and walks of life who might be tuning in. I'd like to thank the Trans-Tasman Business Circle and Johnny, Tanya and Sharon for hosting this event, and a special thank you to Raelene for the warm welcome and kind words about ANZ's support over the years. I'd like to acknowledge Raelene as someone who has led by example in the male-dominated area of sports management and business. And I'd also like to acknowledge the amazing work her team does at Sport New Zealand in the gender diversity space for our wahine. It was, in fact, some of the excellent research that Sport New Zealand did into female participation in sport that inspired our work, which I'll share with you today. So thank you. I've had the privilege of speaking at the Trans-Tasman Business Circle several times now during the almost 2 years I've been CEO, but today's speech is unlike most I've given before. I'm thrilled to share with you the findings of the Watch Women Win research report commissioned by ANZ. Equality is an area I feel strongly about and have been involved in for some time throughout my career, and work with Global Women and as part of its Champions for Change initiative. And that's why, since taking on the role of CEO, I've created senior roles within ANZ and New Zealand, one for developing and implementing a Te Ao Māori strategy, and one to focus on equity, diversity and inclusion. There's some really good work being done in this space with the sporting lens, thanks to Raelene and Sport New Zealand, as I mentioned, and with the government's focus on participation in sports and recreation over the past 3 years. I do have a lot of skin in the game, both as a female leader and someone who has benefited from the support of amazing women with incredible mana all my life, from my mother to former teachers and colleagues who never saw my gender as an impediment to success. I've also had men champion me at work, and the support of my husband, who continues to be a partner and cheerleader. And men, of course, have an equally important role to play in watching women win. As a major supporter of sport in New Zealand, one of the biggest sponsors, in fact, we at ANZ wanted to look at the interventions and solutions that can increase participation and prevent that drop-off that statistics show occurs when young women opt out of sport and recreation sort of from the age of 15. We know from existing research from Sport New Zealand that the three key reasons why women drop out of sport, or we suspect from pursuing specific life goals in general, lack of confidence, fear of judgment, and fear of failure. And I can resonate with all of those. Through our Watch Women Win research, we wanted to look at those who have been successful in their chosen fields and highlight how they overcame any barriers that stood in their way, and look into ways that we can help others do the same. It's my hope that this research will go on to inform solutions that help Kiwi women, as well as encourage celebration of women across all fields of achievement, whether business, sport, art, science, or indeed any space held and occupied by women in 2021. If you can see it, you can be it. It's a simple but really powerful concept, and it's become a mantra for how I lead my team. We're all privileged to have incredible templates for female-driven success in our country. Think of great Kiwis like Emma Twigg, who's with us here today, Dame Valerie Adams, Lydia Ko. ANZ was actually an early sponsor of Lydia back when we could afford her. Dame Fina Cooper, Teresa Gatting in business, Dame Kath Tizard, Helen Clark. The list goes on, and many who are not household names. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have benefited from these women as trailblazers, and the wisdom, guidance, and support of so many who have also blazed a trail that others may follow. So it's in that spirit that our research, conducted by ANZ in collaboration with Talbot Mills Research, drilled into the challenges that stand in our way as women of Aotearoa. We canvassed 1,500 women across the country from all ages and walks of life. And since I'm an accountant by training, I would like to share some of those numbers with you and give you my take on them. 2/3, around about, of female respondents felt successful women didn't receive as much recognition as men and were more likely to experience self-doubt in 3 of the 4 areas we studied, which were work, social settings and schooling, more likely to experience self-doubt, less so in sports, interestingly, which was the 4th setting. Nearly 3/4 of female respondents attributed their successes in life to feeling supported, helping bridge the gap between the lack of opportunities that 40% of those surveys felt they experienced in life compared with male counterparts. New Zealand women largely look close to home for the support, with family and friends the most influential and inspiring achievement. Social media personalities and influencers were the #1 motivator of people aged 18 to 44. And 2 out of 3 men, 66%, feel women have equal opportunities versus 44% of women, while ensuring fair pay policies are in place was agreed by almost 3/4 as a way to support women reach their goals. Women ranked hard work, strong support, and being encouraged higher than men as key factors attributing to success. Growing up, males are more likely to have experienced encouragement to participate in sport than females, primarily coming from their fathers, while females had more encouragement from their mothers to play sports. In general, health and fitness were seen as universally important, even among the least active respondents, and was a strong driver of the sense of obligation to do more in terms of physical activity. Females also considered the following factors more important than males: mental health, 81 versus 72%, me time, 68 versus 59%, and better sleep, 73 versus 63%. So I find these results particularly motivating. It's really encouraging to see that some women have found the support and inspiration they need at home and in their communities in order to thrive, but there's still work to do to bridge that gap and boost those numbers. It's great to see sport and recreation as an area where women experience less self-doubt, a more even playing field, if you'll excuse the pun, and there's opportunity here that we need to look into. It's interesting that women rank hard work, support and encouragement higher than men in terms of the vital roles it plays in enabling success. That tells us that collaboration in general is more important to help women reach their full potential. We also seem to place greater significance on mental health, me time and sleep in terms of the environment we need to reach our goals. As a leader, that reminds me of the need to make a provision for optimising the way teams work and policies we have in place to allow them to put their best foot forward in the various roles they perform. And it's great to recognise that women are finding role models online as they work out who they are in this world and what makes them tick. But there's also huge potential to highlight more stories of great women achieving success in other domains. And finally, the results suggest that family and those closest to home are the most influential in our drive to overcome obstacles. For me, that was a woman like my mother, who was admitted as a solicitor of the High Court in the 1960s, surrounded by men. For me, it was important to see a woman achieve her goals and all the lessons and failures and obstacles that drove her toward them, because it sort of imparted a mental roadmap for how my life might take shape and where my future might take me. So in summary, I think the most important lesson we can take away from this research is that we still have work to do to ensure that all Kiwi women feel empowered. To show them they should not feel confined by binary choices, having to choose one thing over another. It's not career over relationship or family. That's not the choice that many men consciously think of, so we shouldn't either. It's certainly not having to conform to someone else's idea of what success should look like. I want women to feel energised by a future in which we define and shape our own destinies with a freedom and purpose that wasn't always enjoyed by our te puna. As wahine, Pacifica, European, Asian, gender diverse, as Kiwi women. Despite the name of this research, I also don't want us just to sit back and watch women win. I want us to enable women to win. Most importantly, it's about sharing stories of women winning in the various ways we do. It's about seeing women thrive and providing inspiration to our tamariki. It's about providing the narratives we need to hear about female success in every single area of life. I'm keen, and I hope some of you on this call today are too, to help share those stories. Practically speaking, we're helping, as you heard, sponsor the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup, which is being hosted in New Zealand in March and April next year. And as part of that, we've committed to supporting a cricket development program for young women aged 15 to 18 called the Next 11. The program is going to foster up-and-coming talent from the regions who will be given the opportunity to boost their cricket skills and live out their White Ferns dream. We chose to begin with cricket because of the depth of our existing partnership with New Zealand Cricket and because our research shows that female-led sports are underrepresented on New Zealand television. My team and I are also developing an equity, diversity and inclusion policy that moves beyond equality of opportunity in the workforce, because not everyone begins life at the same start line. At the moment, the executive team and board at ANZ New Zealand are gender equal, but the number of women in leadership positions across the bank is still less than 40%. We need to change that. The numbers are single figure for Maori and Pacifica, which is shameful for a New Zealand company. We're going to have to hold ourselves to account for improving those numbers. I'm conscious I've spoken a lot for an online meeting. Watch Women Win is about sharing the many success stories of women winning on many fronts in New Zealand. So to all the women from all backgrounds and walks of life who might be tuning in today, to the men as well, please join with me in helping tell the many success stories we have, not only of those who have won, like my mother, but also those who are currently winning. Let's make lots of people see it so many others can be it. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. And now I have the honour of sharing the virtual stage with New Zealand Olympic gold medalist and champion rower Emma Twigg. Hi, Emma. And
Hi,
Emma
Antonia.
has shared on social media today, I'm just going to give it away for the audience, but some very exciting news that she and her wife are expecting a baby Twig at some stage. So congratulations on behalf of me and ANZ and everyone in the audience. That's absolutely fantastic news. And we've been really proud as ANZ to have supported Emma going back to the London Olympics in 2012. As Raelene said, she's really exemplified the Watch Women Win spirit long before she had a gold medal around her neck. And how cool was it to see how many other Kiwi women joined her on the medal podiums this year. Like many successful people in many fields, Emma has had many ups and downs in her rowing career, missing narrowly twice for medals, retiring, coming back. So welcome, Emma. We're going to open it up to the floor. So hopefully you can use the Q&A function in Zoom to ask questions, but I might just start with a few of you. Our Watch Women Win research suggested that encouragement was the #1 factor that kept women on track with their goals. What were the factors for you that kept you on track when things got hard?
Oh yeah, I found myself nodding my head and resonating with everything that was coming out of your mouth as you were going through that slide deck. For me, when I speak about resilience, and my career has been defined by resilience of late, it definitely has, for me, that resilience has come from the support that I've had around me and the people throughout my career who have encouraged me and have continued to encourage me, and believed what I believed, which is that one day I could be an Olympic champion. My parents were and family were a big part of that game in the early days, but more recently, the people and the team that I surrounded myself by in the lead up to Tokyo, and there's been many times where I've doubted my ability and wondered whether I was banging my head against a brick wall. But those people have stuck with me and have given me the encouragement that has allowed me to achieve my goals, which is pretty special.
Yeah, awesome. And the research showed us that women still feel that men are afforded more opportunities to succeed than women. What do you think needs to happen to level the playing field to enable women to win more often?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I think that visibility is a crucial one in that space. Encouragement that we've just talked about. And I think Rowing New Zealand, actually our team is a great example where there's not a barrier between men and women and what we earn. And I think our team shows that with investment and investing equally across both genders, equally our team can achieve the same fantastic results. And actually in the past few years, the women have actually overtaken the mantle of the men, and it kind of swings and roundabouts as you go through Olympic cycles. But in our sport and many Olympic sports, our funding is government funding, and there isn't a real difference between men and women. So I think it's a great example of where if there's equal funding and resource and visibility, you can create some fantastic results. So yeah, that would be kind of my take on where I think there needs to be work. Visibility is also a huge one too. And I know as a young woman, having role models and looking at the Swindell twins and seeing them achieve definitely made me believe I could achieve as well.
It's really, as you talk of the ebbs and flows, and it will just be women one time and men one time. And I hope, and I feel like it's a bit like New Zealand Prime Ministers. We'll have women sometime and we'll have men sometime, but it's feeling far more normal these days. So what do you think, what can men do here? What role can men play in helping women win?
I think that they should be championing the women in their lives and making an example that we can achieve equally what they can. I think men and women have different skills. And I think so long as you play to those skills, you can get some equally great results. So I hope that the men in my life will, I guess, are proud of what I've done and will promote my achievements and can see that I have the skills equal to them to be able to sit around a board table or be employed in administration, perhaps within sport, and that what I've achieved is equal to what they have achieved. And I think that's the key thing, is that we're all humans. We all have a skill set, and a gender shouldn't be the deciding factor between whether you are given a role or not, and whether you're going to succeed or not.
Cool. And one last one from me. I mean, you're definitely a role model for other young women coming into sport. What advice would you give the audience, and many of us in the audience are people leaders, about supporting young people in their goals, whether they're parents or employers or in sport?
I think, coming back to kind of what we were talking about to begin with, it's about encouraging and empowering young people. I've always felt that I could achieve my goal, which was to be an Olympic champion, but if it wasn't for the people around me that invested their time and their faith in my abilities as well, I certainly wouldn't have achieved what I have. So as a parent, I think if your little boy or girl has a dream and you can see that they have a passion for that, then encouragement is key to that, and making sure they're obviously making the right decisions and potentially helping them down certain pathways. But ultimately, I think if somebody wants to achieve something and they set their mind at it, then there's no reason why they can't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something about, we've always kind of known that women need often, and you don't want to always generalize, just need a little bit more of a push. And it's really interesting to see that come out so strongly in the research, that the support and the encouragement has tended to make that much more of a difference to them. So now hopefully I can see Sharon's popped up on the screen. Have you got some questions from the audience?
I do. And also, thank you, Emma, for your time. A lot of comments. Congratulations, of course, from the audience, and Antonia, to you for sharing your personal story around your mother and the role model there, which is beautiful. So thank you, everyone. Keep the questions coming through, but I've got a few to start us off with. So Hannah has asked, and it's probably a question for both of you, do you think that women believe we have to work harder to be seen as successful, or is this a personal imposed belief? Perhaps, Antonia, should we start with you?
I think, I mean, and I can't point to research because I'm not, but I think that's a proven fact. When you see that women are just have tended to be held to a high standard. And I think that's one of the important things about us all helping to elevate more women, so that it's more natural. It's a bit like, is it the women's 8 or the men's 8 that's strong at the moment? It doesn't really matter. It's just whoever is. Seeing people with different career traits and characteristics leading and being successful helps us to not have that traditional mindset of what a leader looks like.
Emma, just to follow on from that, Anna's asked, we talk a lot about the challenges women face, but she wonders what opportunities we could leverage to achieve equity. Do you see any superpowers or opportunities we could use?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think women have all sorts of superpowers, and I think they're always underestimated as well. And I think when you give women opportunities to shine, then they more often than not will. So I think that's key to that. Is, ANZ are a great example of a business that is invested in women and sees the value in investing in women. And I think if we continue to have that investment and women are given opportunities, then there's going to be more stories to be told, and those superpowers are going to shine through. So I think that's probably key moving forward, is to keep investing and keep creating these opportunities.
I think the other one too, I mean, if you think about women asking for support or saying that's helped them make successful, we're actually good at giving it. So make sure that you're very consciously aware of supporting the people around you.
So on investment, Jennifer has asked a question around that, and essentially around the importance of equal funding. So perhaps, Antonia, from your point of view at the bank, what would you say to investors or leaders in sports organisations about what can be done to advance equal investment in sport?
Well, part of it's the profile that you give. I mean, we have a very, very long history with New Zealand cricket, and we were part, but that was tend to be focused on the men's team back in the days. So we made a very deliberate decision that we should support the White Ferns as well. And that's just, that's helped New Zealand cricket elevate, both genders and both teams. And we still don't see women get the same profile as the men, but gosh, it's getting better, isn't it? And some of those women are just outstanding. And here we are with the Cricket World Cup on our doorstep. So that is absolutely fantastic. Likewise with the netball, there's been a bit of commentary at the moment about the Phoenix women's team. And we've been asked if we would sponsor them. We feel like we've got our books pretty full at the moment, because part of being a sponsor is making sure that you spend the time with your sponsoree to help elevate them and spend the time and make sure that they get the most of it. But I would urge any corporate to give that some thought, because being part of women's sport has been fantastic for us, whether it's been individuals like Emma or Lydia in the past, whether it's been the teams like the netball teams and the cricket teams.
Brilliant. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming through. These are great. So I'm not sure, you can choose who you'd like to answer this. Do we see New Zealand being a leader globally and a global role model? And what actions can we do as a country? Perhaps should we start with you, Emma, this time?
I think straight away my mind goes to what the NZOC, and I'm speaking from my experiences, have done, and they've certainly led the way and pushed for equality and gender balance. And I think we are definitely seen as leaders. That's why we're having these amazing events come to our country. And I think we've got a Women in Sport conference, international conference, coming to New Zealand as well. So I definitely think we're seen as leaders in this area. And certainly, as Raelene spoke before, actually mandating that we need female representation on boards has been a huge part of that as well.
Brilliant. And I know Kieran's on the line as well, so from the NZOC, so that's wonderful. Now, more about ethnicity and supporting ethnic communities, and it was one of the questions I had as well. So the research is a brilliant start, and this question saying, I believe we need more to be done in the ethnic communities. How do we make this happen and break the barriers? And I guess, what role can business and sport play in that?
I can kick off with that. I mean, I think sport's probably taking a lead there. If you look at the diversity across our sports teams, you've got people whose parents are born in India playing against the Indian cricket team. I mean, how wonderful is that? There's a lot of diversity across our rugby teams, netball teams. I think business is not, and you're seeing it in captains, which is the important thing as well. You're seeing it in the leadership of sports. Business isn't as good. I said in my note, in my speaking notes earlier, that we've got a pretty shameful record at ANZ of most ethnicities, I'd say, at the senior levels, not amongst our staff. We're very, very diverse staff, but getting them up. So part of it, we're going to really start to hold ourselves to account for some of that, and I think it does take more affirmative action. But it's very, with women, it's very easy for me to step into women's shoes and think about what the barriers are, because that's me. I can't so easily step into an ethnic minority shoes. So part of that is about learning and listening and understanding what cultural differences might be at play, or understanding what it will take to find people and help promote them and help grow them and develop them. So I'd be a complete liar if I was sitting here and saying it's something we've got nailed, but it's certainly something we want to do some work on. So I hope that I could come along in a couple of years' time and give you some good results.
Brilliant, and great to acknowledge it as well. So lots of comments coming through, more congratulations and loving the report, which is brilliant. I wanted to ask, I found it interesting that in the report, women ranked hard work, strong support and being encouraged higher than men as key factors, and also placed higher importance on well-being. Do you think there's a place to encourage and engage the feminine side of our brain, and not to say that that's a male or a female mindset, but rather the creative side, or that better understands collaboration and EQ?
I think if you look over you go, Emma.
I was just going to say that, as I said earlier, I think men and women are different, and we need to play to our strengths, and we also need to understand men and women and what makes them tick. And I think that's a real key thing, is yes, potentially that empathetic female attribute needs more encouragement. And so if we know that now, then we know how to encourage women to be the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we've really seen over the last couple of years. I mean, empathy, you've got a pandemic, you've got a lot of people working at home, mental health, that it's been a time for leadership that has been really, really people focused and concerned about people. The interesting thing about the wellbeing stuff is it really resonates for me with what some of the choices women make as well. I think you're more likely to see a woman step back and say, actually, I need to focus on something else. I can't do it all. And, you can't judge that, right? You cannot judge that at all, rather than keep driving themselves forward because there's some kind of expectation on them. And, whilst there sometimes is this more of an expectation on men, I think we'd acknowledge in society, is that the right thing either? Should there be more, equality in both directions?
So Kirsty's also asked, was it disappointing to find or to discover the number one influencer for the age group, I think it was 18 to 44-year-olds, as social media personalities? And how can organisations better profile our leading women?
I think that one, one of the things that we're going to do out of this is start profiling women from all walks of life. But I think that's, my first reaction was, oh, social media. But the second one is, you've got successful women being profiled or profiling themselves and showing what can be done. So you can't argue about that. You can't just roll your eyes and say, oh, that's Insta or whatever. So I think that's something we should be learning from and saying, well, let's use other channels to profile women that might not be the ones that want to, be the influencer, but they're actually people that women would really love to hear from and see their stories.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, one, Emma, perhaps for you, where do you see any synergies or overlaps between business and sport, in particular for athletes? And I guess what we're thinking about there is the potential of athletes as our future leaders of New Zealand.
I think the synergies run really deep between, especially high-level sport in general, but high-level sport and business. And when I have taken a step away and ventured into the business world, it's been really apparent to me. And I think a lot of the issues that we face, even discussing today, they're all really similar. It's, having stories told, representation, culturally diverse, different ways of thinking, and making sure that there's opportunities there for absolutely everybody. And that's the exact same in sport. I think when people ask me, about the two, I think your general kind of work ethic and habits that you put into play daily as an elite athlete certainly cross over into the business world as well. And it's that old mentality that, if you work hard at something and you're willing to learn, that's directly relevant to anything that you do. I
think many people in New Zealand as well get their first opportunity to lead through sports. It's not me. I was hopeless at sport, but a lot of people, that's the first time they're the captain of the whatever team at school.
And following on from that, lots of people commenting on the positive side of social media as well, which we have to acknowledge. Emma, following on from that, there's a question here. You're a role model for other young women coming into sport. So adding on to what you've said, what advice would you give the audience about supporting young people and their goals? And this is a good part of the question, whether as parents or employers.
I think positivity is key to encouragement, and as I kind of touched on earlier, just promoting and encouraging athletes to do what they love doing. And if I come back to the social media side as well, I think as females, it actually gives us a platform that potentially we can reach even more people, because the visibility on other social or commercial, I guess, opportunities aren't there for women. And then you've seen over in the US, the women's football teams over there have used social media to kind of create change, and that's their voice because they have such a huge following. And that may also be an avenue for young women in New Zealand. It's their voice, I guess, where they're not on billboards or in the Sky Sport adverts and things in your kind of mainstream media. So yeah, I agree that there's positives and negatives to social media as well.
And here we go, just to acknowledge what you've done as well from Lucy Elwood. Your use, Emma, of social media is fantastic. At the Cancer Society, they've had a huge amount of respect for your live streaming of your recent ice bath fundraiser. That sounds interesting.
That was all thanks to ANZ, actually. They threw me in the deep end.
Another one of our long-term partnerships is the Cancer Society, which is wonderful when we can get them all linked together.
Nice.
But it's a great example of something that can really take off through social media, and you just get such a massive reach, and it's such a positive thing as well.
Another question here. Andy Murray uses his high profile in tennis to champion women's equality in tennis and sport generally. So how do we encourage high profile men in New Zealand sport to champion women and in business? Who would like to start?
I mean, part of it is, and I'd love to hear Emma's perspective from the sports thing, but part of it is that, I think more generally, our leaders in New Zealand business, male or female, understand the imperative here. It's not about, there's certainly an equality lens to it, but there's also you do better as an organisation, and it's well researched if you better reflect your customer base and you have more diverse decision making and all that sort of thing. So I think that almost goes without saying. There's an interesting dynamic, I think, that's come across in the last week or so as we were promoting this event. Internally, I had several emails from fathers of daughters. So, businessmen are, if they've got kids, it's 50-50 whether they're sons or daughters. So just thinking through how that might be different, or how the daughters might need a different set of support than the sons do. Even to that extent, that's somewhere where business leaders can actually play a part just as anyone else can.
And
I think in sport, having male allies, or I love cricket. It's a sport that I'm passionate about, and I look to what they're doing now, and the investment being made in women's cricket. And I think ultimately you want your men's players to be promoting the women's teams, because although it doesn't sound great, it does add an element of credibility. And I think making men realize that the product is equally as good as the men's product, and that's something that they would like to sit on the couch and watch, is only going to grow the game. So that investment, I guess it upskills the athletes, but then it also brings different eyes to the game, which adds an element to all sorts of things, even the commercial ability of that game too. So yeah, I love watching the women's Big Bash, and sometimes the women's game is even more exciting than the men's is, and them actually are big fans and supporters of the women's teams too.
It is about the opportunity to see them. Years ago, when I, very excitingly, my first opportunity to go to the box at Eden Park and watch sport as part of ANZ, and so exciting. My husband and I turned up really early, and it was an all-black game, and the women's team was playing Australia, I think. So it was a pretty cool game in advance, and so we were sitting there watching that, going, "This is great." And at that stage, no one was getting the opportunity to see it and understand that it was great. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes. You need the exposure to get the people to realise. The New Zealand women's versus men netball series recently, how good was that? Absolutely brilliant.
And, I think I particularly see in our children, they're starting to recognise names of black ferns as much as the All Blacks, and that's brilliant as well. Now, there's a question here on confidence. What are your thoughts on women being their own worst enemies at times, thinking they need to be perfectly qualified for a role in sports or a corporate position before putting themselves forward? So maybe your thoughts and your advice on that as well. Shall we start with you, Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I'm my own worst critic, and I've definitely battled with self-doubt on numerous occasions throughout my career. And I think key to that, again, is the support that you have around you. And this is probably where having those allies around you, and men that also pump your tires and encourage you that you are good enough and you should be applying for those positions. I think that, when I look back, my team is majority men. And again, it's not about gender, it's about your ability. And that's probably at the end of the day what it always should be about.
Yeah, and as a generalisation, that is absolutely true. It resonates with me, with myself, and with many, many other women I've come across. And, the role will come up, and there's men, and again, a generalisation that the men are going, pick me, and the women sort of need to be approached. And I've got, I hope she doesn't mind me telling the story, but Sharon Zollner, our chief economist, who's a well-known media personality effectively in New Zealand. I mean, she's asked for commentary all the time. She did not apply for that job until some of us, and I might have been part of that, sort of gave her a little bit of a push. And then I heard her say on a panel, she thought it was only because she was a woman and they needed a woman on the shortlist, which is going, come on. So, I mean, it's, someone who's as confident and poised as Sharon is, that's all of us. And I think that's the research is showing that that's why we just need that little push, and the support that we give to women, and that the support and encouragement, whether it's in your and family as colleagues, is just so important.
There you go, and there's an endorsement. Sharon is a weapon.
She is.
In the audience. So following on from that, and coming back to the research, and the 44% of women and 66% of men think women have equal opportunities, this acceptance of the status quo by both women and men is concerning. So how do we reach these groups and understand that women are in fact oppressed or disadvantaged? Sorry, I've got lots of pop-ups, and make the case for change. Perhaps we can approach it from a business lens, Antonia first, and Emma from your sporting lens.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with visibility, role models, people you can look at that have been successful in their chosen fields, highlight how they've overcome barriers, be very relatable. There's a piece in the research, actually, I've only highlighted a couple of bits, but relatable, down to earth and community minded role models are the sort of things that people are looking for. So being very aware of that, and then having the positive policies that mean that people are going to look further, that you're going to have more of an opportunity for women to be considered and sought out for roles. And we have some of those policies, like gender balanced shortlists and gender balanced interview panels as well, so that you've got the different perspectives on that.
And Emma, from your perspective?
Yeah, I guess sport is a little bit of a different one as well, because in sport we have Olympic sports, I guess I look to when the funding is relatively even, but then in the more commercial games there's a real huge imbalance. And so again, it comes back to investors seeing the worth in the women's game, and probably some of the men and those the leadership in those organizations to realize that actually with some investment in the future, we can have equally as a good a product on that side. And again it still comes back to having role models. And when I was young, there weren't black ferns that I was looking up to, or white ferns for that matter. Our Olympic champions are in the spotlight every 4 years, but when I was young, those other more commercial male dominated sports, it just wasn't an option. So it's only going to get better, I think, with the visibility that we're getting now.
Brilliant. And another question, I guess, around confidence and progression. So how do you see we keep progressing and growing the self-belief in women that they, in their corporate life, no matter at what age, they can achieve the role, change or promotion? They can utilize all those tools or skills in their toolbox to strive for those opportunities to further their career. Maybe Antonia, one for you.
So an age-based one. I mean, I think that's one of the tools that we need to have, is that, who's going to argue when a woman wants to have time out to have a child, Emma? So it's important then that you make allowances for, sometimes you'll have someone who wants to have a period where they might take a step back, but you want to keep them you want to keep your arms around them so that you can acknowledge when the time is right, they're ready to take off again. And we've seen women doing that at ANZ very, very successfully. You have to remove some potential age-based unconscious bias that said, oh, well, someone getting promoted to those roles might usually be in their early 30s. Well, maybe they're in their early 40s. So some of those things are important as well. And I think that's something that we're coming to realise, across careers. Returnship programs as people re-enter the workforce have become a much bigger thing and are playing an important role in those sorts of things as well.
Brilliant. Now, I wanted to ask both of you, if you were talking to your younger self today, what might you say, or what advice might you give your younger self? Perhaps we could start with you, Emma.
I get asked this often. There's probably two things I'd say. One would be that persistence beats resistance, that you should never give up on a dream, and if you believe something, that you can certainly achieve it if you work towards it and have that belief. And another one, I guess, along the lines of the discussion today, is that you'll have doubts, but if you know your self-worth and you know what you're capable of, don't let anyone tell you that you're not worthy of something. It's about, I guess, your internal belief and go for it.
Love it. And Antonia?
My ones are probably a little more simple, and not having been the captain of any sports team or a head girl or anything like that, that you sort of get used to having a public presence and speaking and doing the speech or welcoming the whatever. I spent my entire early career avoiding ever having to get up in front of a group of people and say anything. I wish I hadn't. I always let the boys do it, or sat back while someone asked for a volunteer. And as I've learned, as I've had to do it, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And so if I'd learned to do it earlier, I probably wouldn't have had those early days, like when I was at CFO, standing behind a podium with my hands shaking and my knees knocking and over preparing because I was just so terrified of how it might turn out. Whereas now it's become much more of a less frightening thing. It's still not my favoritist thing, but a far less frightening thing than it was then. So I think kids now are getting taught that as routine anyway. I wish we had.
Yeah. Again, very powerful to share for other, emerging leaders and women in particular. So thank you to you both. We've got time for one more question, and I wanted to ask you, Antonia, what is one action we can all take away from today to support ourselves and other female leaders?
I think the one thing I'd say is that understanding we have from the research of the importance of support for women as support and encouragement. And I think that, there's hard work, but there's also someone behind you saying, and you can do it, and you're great at this, and you'll succeed. And so we can apply that to ourselves and maybe get rid of some of the mindset that we can't do it, but also apply it to others by providing that support very overtly. Brilliant.
Now, there's so much chat coming through. I wanted to share with everyone. Thank you so much for all the words of encouragement to Antonia and Emma and all of your comments here. They can see them all. So just wanted to acknowledge those and say thank you for sharing them. I'm going to hand over to our CEO, Tanya O'Zeal, to formally propose the vote of thanks today, and we'll welcome her into the V room now.
Hi, everyone. Oh, that was amazing. Thank you, Antonia, Raelene, Emma, and of course, Sharon. You did a great job in facilitating this most important conversation. It's such a pleasure for me to deliver the vote of thanks today. The purpose of Sports Connect, when we actually created the Sports Connect brand under the Circle brand, was to bring business and business and sport together, and to create a platform where the conversations could find their connectivity. So thank you so much for being part of our Sports Connect panel today. We've enjoyed such a great relationship with ANZ for over 27 years. The Circle this year is nearly 30 years old. So out of 30 years, ANZ's been right behind us, and you've always led the way. And Antonia, today, what a privilege to be bringing this to such a prestigious audience. And of course, thank you for championing this. This is, these are inspirational voices that need to be heard and championed. Such an important conversation that actually cannot stop here today. So we must keep inspiring our current female leaders, and most importantly, the next generation of our female leaders. And today, this is exactly what you have done by launching this brilliant initiative, which is Watch Women Win. Immediately, of course, an outcome of this, we'll be sharing the report with all of you here today. And after the event, we'd love you to read it. Antonia has personally asked us to welcome your feedback, so please take the time to read it and share your thoughts. We can only make this conversation better if we're all part of it. And this tapestry is something that is rich and important for all of us. I'm also excited to share, and you are hearing it here first, that the Circle and Antonia and ANZ are pulling together an offsite leadership forum for early next year that will be themed around Watch Women Win, where we want to gather women from all walks of life and careers, including, of course, our future female leaders, our emerging leaders who are winning in their fields of interest and want to win in their chosen pathways, and others who are like-minded and want to help tell these stories to the rest of New Zealand. So please look out for more details, as we're committed to continuing this conversation, bringing great female leaders together for peer-to-peer dialogues, continuous learning, and of course, inspiring each other. So on behalf of the Circle, Sports Connect and ANZ, thank you all so much for joining us. Have a fabulous week ahead. And I'm so glad the hairdressers are back in Auckland, because you all look awesome. So have a wonderful time. And Raelene, it's always great to see you. I loved seeing you in Australia. I love seeing you in New Zealand. So that's a special shout out to Raelene, who's always been part of our family. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Thank you.